All right, what's up, guys? We are back here with another movie review, and we're taking just a short one video break on the Stephen King reviews, and we're going to be looking at Midway, which I actually went and saw this yesterday in theaters. And I know I said I would post the video last night, but I just ended up passing out and not getting to that. I apologize, but I did just in case you guys don't end up just in case it ends up getting posted later tonight or something, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you guys ahead of time. So I wanted to wait a while to because a long time ago, about my channel has been up for about 3 years, including the time that my old channel was up that I eventually just got rid of and started this one. And this was the one that eventually stuck, but I did a series because I used to record on Roblox all the time, and one of the series that I did, one of the most popular ones, was me going through and I managed to find mountains and mountains of different song IDs to use in Roblox, mostly metal song IDs. But I plan on redoing that because I wanted to wait for a time to where I can I just wanted to wait for something to where I can have a bunch of song IDs to give you, and I eventually got to that point, and I'll be showing you that video later. But yeah, right now we're going to be talking about Midway. Now, my favorite category of movies has to be horror, but I also highly enjoy historical movies like this. It's not just World War II movies. I also like back in Spartan days of 300, Troy, and then you got all kinds of movies like Braveheart, the Robin Hood movies. I love those. And then there's also fictional historical movies like Inglourious Bastards and Django Unchained that I also enjoy. But I just enjoy shit like that in general, like Free State of Jones with Matthew McConaughey, 12 Years a Slave. I also enjoy historical movies going into music and stuff with the Doors with Val Kilmer. And then you also got The Dirt with shit, I forget that guy's name, but you also got The Dirt, and then you got I thought Rocket Man wasn't that good. I'm sorry. I liked Bohemian Rhapsody, though. I thought that was pretty good. I saw both of those in theaters, actually. But, yeah. But this one, this movie does have issues. It's not the best World War II movie I've seen. It does have some, a few issues with it that kind of, they don't necessarily don't make sense, but they kind of make the movie less exciting than it actually is, and they could have done a better job on it. But this movie was still good nonetheless. I still really enjoyed it. Now, an example of a movie that also took place at sea and also took place during World War II that I just did not like. It was one of the worst historical movies I've ever watched, and it had a bunch of newer actors in it, but it was called The Finest Hours. It came out a couple years ago. That was the shittiest movie I've ever seen. It was 2.5 hours long, and it was just extended scenes of water. The entire movie was just water everywhere. I get it. They're at sea and they're in the middle of a storm, but the entire movie is just water, splashing here and there. And then we get another scene where the guys are talking, we got to get these boys back. And then we get another scene where they're just water splashing. Whoa, water. And then we get another scene oh, we got to get the boys back. And then water splashing. Oh, we got to get the boys back. Water splash. It's the dumbest. It's worse than Michael Bay's Pearl Harbor, in my opinion, which is another shitty movie. But, oh my God. At least this movie was not that, is what I'm trying to get to. Because that was my intention on going into this. I'm like, oh shit, is this going to be another Finest Hours? Because that wasn't too long ago. No, it wasn't. And I do not regret going to see this in theaters. It was a very pleasant watch. Not to mention, it had my favorite character from the Conjuring series, Ed Warren, in it, and it also had a actor in a movie that I just went and saw him in another movie. It had Woody Harrelson in it, and I literally about 2 or 3 weeks ago I went and saw Zombieland 2 in theaters. So there you go. Okay, now I don't know how accurate this movie is. Um, because of course I didn't fight in World War II, or else I'd be like 90 or something. But I didn't fight in World War II, so I don't know how accurate the movie is. But honestly, after 300, I honestly most of the time don't care about how accurate it is, unless it's because see, I don't normally beat down movies like as long as the directors themselves give a shit about the story that they're adapting, or the true story they're adapting, and don't make it like instead of a great naval battle they had spaceships and UFOs. If they don't go that far off overboard, I'm not really going to beat them up about it, because I'm not a historian. I do highly enjoy history and I'm very educated about it, but I don't know enough to be a complete historian. But from what I've gathered and all the shit that I've gone through, like all the movies that I've seen, all the books I've read, most of the battles and the ship designs, maybe there was a little bit overkill on the explosions and shit, but it's a war movie. I mean, you can't get how many historically accurate explosions there were in the battle. So like no historian on the face of this planet could go in and be like, there were 42 explosions in this naval battle. They couldn't do that. So I can't really beat on how actiony it was. Now, see, a prime example of that would be a movie that I went and saw a couple years ago, and I later bought it on Blu-ray. Hacksaw Ridge. It had Andrew Garfield in it and Vince Vaughn. And it also had the guy from V for Vendetta as the dad. But it was a really good movie. But I thought it was a little overkill with how many fucking... Just, it was... I thought the battle scenes were a little bit overkill. Not violence-wise. I highly enjoyed the violence in the movie. But, like, I just thought it was kind of... I don't know. It was a little bit overkill with the gunfire and shit. Now, I can't really say anything about it since I didn't fight in this battle, but to me, I think that it would have been really fucking intense, but not that intense. I mean, come on. And you know what? This movie definitely had traces of that, but I think they still executed it decently. There were parts where I was questioning the choices of different things. I know these events probably happened, but the way that they executed it wasn't really, and it would explain why it has a 47% on Rotten Tomatoes, even though sometimes Rotten Tomatoes is not right. But it does explain. I'm probably going to give it a better than a 47% because, again, I don't think Rotten Tomatoes gave it a good score. They still gave it, I understand why they gave it that score, but I don't think it was good enough to give this movie. I think this movie was better than that. But, for example, the one thing that, and I actually, the reason I went and saw this in the first place was because my grandpa, he actually fought in World War II against the Japanese. He was not in Midway, but he did have a friend that was in Midway. And, but he said since he was a pilot in that, I mean, he was like a bombardier, I guess, but he said that he thought the designs and most of the battle was accurate, but the two things that he complained about, and I actually saw them before he even told me about them, because I've seen him read enough history books to know that some of the stuff was inaccurate and you wouldn't really know the full story. And the two things that he said was a little bit out there was the lengthened explosions and shit of the battle itself. He said, that's where my phrase came from. He said it was intense, but it probably wasn't that intense. That came from him. So, and the second thing he talked about was the whole thing at the end of the movie where the Japanese people were on the boat and this whole thing happened where the Japanese guy let his officers out and this guy didn't want to leave, but he made him go. See, he didn't really know if that actually happened. See, there's a lot of layers there, but it's just little things like that. And it's probably why I'm not going to give this movie an A+. But I still really enjoyed it nonetheless. It was a really fun movie and there were some intense scenes in it. I could say that there were some legitimately intense scenes in it. And I thought because another really good air battle, because Midway wasn't just a naval battle, it was also a plane battle too, because there was a lot in the movie. There's a lot of plane battles in it and a lot of bombing and shit. But see, one of my other favorite World War II movie, well, not World War II, but another historical movie like that does involve a lot of air battles is Red Tails. I really enjoyed that movie, and from all the books I've read and all the shit that I've heard from different veterans and stuff and all this stuff, because I'm a big history fan, because history is the most violent story you'll ever read, but it's more violent than all the horror movies on this entire planet combined. I mean, Jesus, history gave us things like the Blood Eagle Wings, which is my favorite torture method of all time. What's the Blood Eagle Wings, you may ask? Well, they take the middle back part of your ribs and twist them up to make them look like the bottom bone. So they twist those up, and it's like pronged up now, and they they lift your lungs up out through your back, the hole that you made through the rib cage. They lift your lungs out through that and basically put the lungs over your shoulders, and then it looks like Blood Eagle Wings, which is also one of my favorite Anthrax songs. So, because Blood Eagle Wings by Anthrax is a goddamn masterpiece. But see, that's another thing. I want to someday, in some kind of medieval historical movie someday, see the Blood Eagle Wings be performed on movie. I want to see the Blood Eagle Wings in a medieval movie. I have always wanted to see that because when I was 10 years old, we had to do an essay, like a historical essay, and mine was on medieval torture methods. And I did the Head Crusher because I was into Megadeth. I also did the Blood Eagle Wings. I did 5. Blood Eagle Wings, Head Crusher, Breast Ripper, Iron Maiden, and the Thumb Press, which were some of my favorites. I had a very morbid childhood, but you know what? History is fun. I don't care what anybody says. History is really fun if you really get into it. Because, see, a lot of ignorant people would say, like, well, I don't want to learn shit. Learning's boring. Well, I'm going to tell you right now that we wouldn't have shit like torture if it wasn't for history. That shit comes from history. I mean, there wouldn't be these there wouldn't be Call of Duty games without history. I mean, come on. Anyway, getting back to the movie, I always go off track like this, but oh, before I go on, I also want to talk about this one. There's another movie with Mel Gibson called Apocalypto. And another one of my favorite, not necessarily torture methods, but some way to kill somebody is I think they did one of these two in Apocalypto. The one where they like cut the bottom of the chest open and then rip their heart out through it. So, yeah, and then they hold it up in the air like Kalima. And then my other favorite one is, I don't remember what exact, I think it was the Aztecs, but I don't remember exactly what era. But when the Spanish guys were coming over, the I don't want to butcher that name, Conquistador. Shit, I didn't butcher it. At least I hope I didn't. But, or Spanish Inquisition. What the fuck am I talking about? Anyway, when the guys were coming over from Spain, if I remember correctly, down to the Aztecs. Well, anyway, this one thing that they did was like they melted down gold and then they made this guy eat it. Like melted hot gold, and it killed him. That shit's brutal. So yeah. Anyway, Midway. So the movie starts off, basically I can't really see, with historical movies like this, I can't really go through the story because I can give you a summary of the historical story itself, but with a historical movie specifically like this, and I might, if I ever review Dunkirk, I might have to do the same thing. This movie takes place in the perspective of several different characters, and it's all over the place. Multiple different points of view in this movie, which I know a lot of movies do that, but it's several different points of view, and I'm going to try my best to go through the story here. So what Midway was, it was the greatest battle in pretty much the United States of America naval history, like the greatest naval battle of all time. And in the movie, they said like they had 3 American aircraft carriers and like 10 Japanese ones. And basically they were outnumbered. So the intelligence operator or whatever, Ed Warren's character from The Conjuring, his character in this, I'm not good with names, so I can't really remember names, but I remember Dennis Quaid's character was called the Bull, and I believe Woody Harrelson's character was called Nimitz. And that is all I can remember. Anyway, this movie is basically like, it starts off before Pearl Harbor happens, and then Pearl Harbor happens, and then it goes all the way to the naval battle itself, and then the movie ends with after the naval battle, the aftermath. It's kind of the usual story. If you're trying to adapt a movie like this, like they did the same thing for Hacksaw Ridge. When they're trying to adapt a movie for this, they usually start off before, they go through the whole story, and then they do the aftermath. They did it with Patriots Day, they did it with 12 Strong, they did it with 13 Hours, Soldiers of Benghazi, and they sort of did it with American Sniper. They've done it with a lot of movies like that. But basically, there were a lot of issues with this movie that I haven't gone over yet. The two being the main thing that I want to talk about. See, this movie, I'm just going to give you a summary of the story, and then I'll point out the things that are good about it and they got accurate, but also the things that they could have done better on. So the things that, basically in this naval battle, it wasn't just boats. It wasn't completely a naval battle because there was a lot of aircraft play as well. But it was all on the water. And there was multiple different things, like there was also one submarine in the movie. I remember that there was also a submarine battle. But really, it didn't serve any purpose, in my opinion. I mean, it was just like there. See, that's another thing. The random summary in this movie, it doesn't really make sense to me. That's one of the biggest issues. There's this scene, there's like this 7-minute long scene where because this movie's 2 hours and 18 minutes. It's pretty long. But there was this scene where the submarine pops up and it launches a torpedo at one of the Japanese aircraft carriers, and it misses, and we don't get to see the submarine ever again. It just disappears. And that's one of the issues with this movie. I thought the submarine scene... Now, I don't know if there was actually a submarine. And I don't know... There may have been more than one. And the fact that they just brushed it off and didn't talk about it kind of angers me, because... What was the point of it being there? It misses its shot and then it just leaves. I don't know if that actually happened, and if it did, correct me, but... It just doesn't really make sense. I mean, it's just there. And another thing was, I thought... I don't know. I thought Dennis Quaid's character was a little... I thought his character was a little... I know he was a bigger part of the... Because Dennis Quaid explained his character as the Patton of naval battle or whatever. Because I saw an interview with him talking to another guy, and he said he was basically like the Patton of the sea. Was one of the things that he called his character. But Dennis Quaid's character in the movie, because I saw that interview before I saw the movie, and I was interested about it. I was like, oh, cool. Because, again, Patton is another really great movie. But eventually, when I saw his character in play in the movie, I just kind of... I don't know, it was kind of forgettable. His character was very forgettable. And there was a lot of characters like that. Like, I was confused. There were several different... I'll get to that later, but Dennis Quaid's character... See, what happens is... Halfway through the movie, he just disappears because he's got a rash on his neck, and then we don't see him till the end of the movie. It's just his character was just kind of... I was disappointed. It was kind of forgettable. Now, I'm sure that actually happened, because there was a little thing at the end that said he later came back to... But they could have, like, given him more screen time, because his character was kind of just okay. And another issue I have is there's several people in here that... Like, one of the main characters of this movie is this pilot guy. I forget his name, but he's this pilot guy. And he takes several different people under his wing, and he's friends with several people on the boat. But the one issue that I had with this movie, I mix these people up constantly because they all looked very similar, and not to mention... Another scene that I had a problem with was there was just planes blowing up everywhere. It's just like planes getting shot down left and right. And it's just like, really? I really don't understand. Like, there's one scene when this dude gets shot down, and I thought it was him, but it wasn't. He gets shot down, and he like parachutes. And then next thing you know, he's back on the boat. And I'm like, how the fuck did he get back there? It doesn't really... The pacing on this movie is another issue. It's like... They don't really explain like how people got where they are. Like they don't explain how this parachute guy managed to get back on the ground and then get back to the exact boat that he was on that was out in the middle of the ocean. Like, it doesn't make sense. It really does not make sense. And that's one of the biggest issues with this movie. Like, for another example, there's this Aaron Eckhart's character. Aaron Eckhart's character is running this like squadron, and they have to bail on their jets. So yeah, they bail out, and they land into this Chinese place where they get taken to a safer place, and they end up escaping. But apparently the Chinese found out about this, and they killed 250,000 civilians, they said in the movie. But the thing that doesn't make sense is this is just another character that shows up for about 20 minutes and then just leaves. Like, it doesn't make sense. He was there for 20 minutes and then it just leaves. And then at the end of the movie, he gets his own little dialogue box to see what he did after the war. And it's just like, what was the point of that? He was only in the movie for 20 fucking minutes. If you really wanted to give him a goddamn dialogue box, then you should have gave him more screen time and explained what the hell he is. I mean, you only gave him 20 minutes of screen time. It was fucking bullshit. It's just like, why? This movie has a lot of characters that just show up and then leave. Like, they could have given him more explanation and showed what else they did to contribute to the war. Like, they could have given him more backstory. Like, what the fuck? That's one of the issues with this movie, and I understand why they gave it a 47%. It's just like, there's a lot of characters in this that just kind of suck, okay? Like another one. This main character pilot, his best friend, like, I guess he ends up burning on this ship called the USS Arizona. He burns to death on it, and he later finds his scorched body in the morgue. And he takes the ring from the body. But the thing that doesn't make sense about this is this guy shows up, and he seems like, oh, another cool main character. He shows up for 5 minutes, and then he just dies. Like, he just dies at Pearl Harbor. Like, you just bring this character in the movie for 5 minutes and then you immediately kill him off. Like, you couldn't have given him just a tad bit of backstory so we know who he is. No, you just throw him in the story because he was part of the naval battle and you don't really need to... Like, I would have liked them to at least explain, like, who he was in the battle. Like, what kind of soldier... Like, they could have explained his character a little better. Even though he's not a character, he was an actual guy. But, like, they could have explained his character just a little bit better. And that's one of the main issues with this movie. But I have really nothing else to say about this movie. I'm probably going to give it a B. I still liked it, even though it had a bunch of issues like that. So remember to leave a comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll be back here with more.